Well, for more on the situation on the ground in Gaza, let's speak to Tamara Alrifai. She's the spokesperson for the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees in the Near East. Thanks for taking time to speak to us here in this troubling time. So give us a sense now of what life is like for people on the ground.
It's miserable. Life for people on the ground is miserable. Gaza is a place that's been bombarded for the last 9 days, with more than 47,000 people sleeping in UNRWA schools in the middle of a global pandemic where it's extremely difficult to organize anything, let alone to organize precautions against COVID. You've seen the images of destruction. People are coming out of the rubble, and this is the fourth round of such hostilities in 13 years under blockade. However, this particular round of hostilities is the most intense since 2014. 200 people in Gaza have been killed, including 60 children. 18 of them went to UNRWA schools. These are people that my colleagues at UNRWA, the teachers, the educators, know personally. So everybody is suffering, and unless there's a ceasefire, more lives are going to be lost, let alone the Gaza infrastructure that is going to be pulverized like every time there's a conflict in Gaza.
Okay. So right now, how many schools and hospitals are actually operating?
There are 58 UNRWA schools that have received people whose homes have been destroyed or who have fled out of fear that their homes are bombarded and destroyed on top of them. This is something that UNRWA is used to. UNRWA is used to opening up its schools as shelters. But this time around, because of the lack of a humanitarian truce, because of the lack of ceasefire, and because of the immense impact of COVID-19 on Gaza, organizing such a big humanitarian operation has been difficult. My UNRWA colleagues themselves are running for their lives. They themselves live in some of these buildings in refugee camps. Most of the UNRWA personnel, staff members, are Palestinian refugees themselves. Gaza is a place of 2 million people. More than 60 or 70% of them are Palestinian refugees. Many of them live in extremely densely populated refugee camps across Gaza. These are my colleagues. They're finding it extremely difficult to even organize something they're used to, a humanitarian response, while they're being bombarded.
Now, amidst this, there's been this talk of setting up or establishing a humanitarian corridor. How much do you think that's going to help, and how hard will it be to establish? Briefly,
we've been in discussions with the Israeli government for humanitarian access today. Unfortunately, we did not receive permission for humanitarian assistance and for the Commissioner General of UNRWA to cross into Gaza. Humanitarian corridors are always extremely effective in situations of intense conflicts. They're supposed to protect humanitarian convoys going into a danger zone. However, they are not a substitute for a true ceasefire, and definitely not a substitute for a solution to a conflict. Again, violence keeps flaring up in Gaza every few years. This time around, it is closely connected to violence that flared up elsewhere in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and started in Sheikh Jarrah, where a group of Palestinian refugees who were forcibly displaced in 1948 were being threatened with another forced displacement in 2021. And this has sparked protests that then led to the reaction from Gaza. So at the core, this is a conflict unresolved that flares up every few years and leaves places like Gaza completely destroyed.
Tamara Alrifai painted a perfect picture there from the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Thanks for joining us on the programme.